Today, I want to talk about a book I just finished, Dr. Faustus by Thomas Mann. I'm also going to talk about Moby Dick, another book I finished a while ago. I think both books, while very different, have some interesting common traits, thoughts, interesting thoughts that go through those books. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's July 18th, 2020. This is Krim Delko. No updates today. It's Saturday, so let's jump right into it. It's Thomas Mann's book, Dr. Faustus, is a book it's a biography. It's a novel, so it's fiction, but it's a biography about a German composer, Adrian Leverkühn, written from the perspective of a friend. In a nutshell, the book is about genius, about becoming bigger than your human nature actually allows you. It's about writing a pact with the devil. Dr. Faustus is obviously an analogy to Goethe's Faust. So it's the question and some, I would say, the suggestion that for true genius, you almost have to have a pact with the devil. It's also an relationship that the novel is written in times when Germany is, you know, taken over by Nazism and pulled into World War II and all this devastation that came with that. So it's also a suggestion that the German people are maybe trying to grow above their natural abilities, which they can, but it's a pact with the devil that ends up in devastation. Mann is a very specific writer. Dr. Faustus is a tome. It's a lot of pages, very precise, detailed pages. The kind of book you have to read the pages a couple of times to understand the flow. And if I take a spectrum between Wittgenstein and Michael Lewis, I always think about that when I look at writers. So you have on the one hand Wittgenstein, which is mathematics in form of language, and on the other hand Michael Lewis, a just naturally born narrator, a guy that can sit around the campfire and talk, and everybody would listen and not get bored. So on that spectrum, Mann is definitely very close to Wittgenstein and pretty far away from Lewis. But nevertheless, he has unbelievable inspirational power, intellectual power. And now let me get to the point. Why is this relevant for the business? It's relevant in many ways. In the one way, it's, as humans, we try to get out of our own skin. We try to be more than the atoms and molecules and biochemistry that we're composed of. And that's fine. This is called ambition. And the question is, do we push it too far sometimes? And is that pushing? Is that trying to get, trying to push the level even higher than we maybe should? Is that a pact with the devil? Is positiveness just an illusion? Is it a lie? Is it a yeah? Mann says in his book in the last pages that positiveness and the ambition and the belief that you can do it, the can-do mentality, is just another way of lying. It's rooted in the Christian lie of salvation, and that there is probably no way around the pact with the devil if you really want to be positive and great. So it's not a direct criticism of capitalism and the positivity that comes with capitalism, but it certainly alludes to that thought that maybe we're pushing it too far. Maybe disruption, the way we at Orange Capital Partners think it's a good thing, maybe in the end it's not such a good thing. Maybe people can't deal with that. So it's worth thinking about this. And I think this book, it is rooted also in Nietzsche. I think Mann, he's one generation after Nietzsche. So this book is in my view, it's a connection between Nietzsche and Wagner in one. So there's a composer, Adrian Leverkühn, who combines both of these characters, Nietzsche and Wagner. So the grandeur, the Übermensch that manifests himself in unbelievably powerful compositions. the math, the precision, the and we spoke about math recently in the episode where I spoke about tools for thinking based on Douglas Hofstadter's books. So this ability to use logic and the power of intellect and combine it with the ability to create emotions through music, this ability to grow out of yourself and become what we call a genius these days, this is obviously reflected in many other parts of society, starting with the Enlightenment, and one part is business. So we look at business founders in a similar way. They create things out of nothing. They're able to create unbelievable positive force. But then we have to ask ourselves in the back of our minds, maybe that force is, maybe there's a pact with the devil there. And I want to contrast these thoughts with another book which was written about 60 years before Mann's book. It's Moby Dick. And I find Moby Dick one of the most important books I've ever written because it gives me a clear sense for history and why the United States became what it was. Moby Dick was written in 1850-ish, so it was just the beginning of the industrial might that the United States would grow into, and it shows the mental ability, the culture, the spirit of the United States in form of a narrative, the narrative of Captain Ahab going after a whale. Now, first of all, whaling is the first industry that the colonies, or the US, what became out of the colonies, the United States of America, is the first industry where the US was world leaders. Few people know that, but part of the reason why the US was able to fight England was because they were very good at naval navigation, and that is because they really innovated dramatically in the whaling business. So whaling wasn't just some sort of niche industry, it was the industry in the United States, other of course than land and tobacco and things like that. But that was sort of old-fashioned business where landowners were exploiting slaves to make money. The whaling industry was the first innovation industry. There was something that we would call an innovation stack necessary. They needed better ships, better technologies, better navigation technologies. They needed to figure out how to go north at the right time, find the whales. They needed to figure out how to use the whales more efficiently, how to use whale oil. The technologies downstream were developed where the whale oil could be used for this and that. So there was a lot of the whole innovation stack was built around whaling, and Moby Dick has, of course, that part of the story, but it also has that part of the can-do mentality of the United States. Captain Ahab goes after that whale. He's not going to be stopped. And the point here is, here's the connection with Mann and Faust, that maybe sometimes this type of innovation, this type of disruption, this type of power of positiveness and can-do mentality can also yield terrible results, that it's a pact with the devil. In Moby Dick's case, yes, the story ends bad. It is also a warning, I think by the writer, and I forgot his name, that this can-do mentality the United States is just about to embark on, that this can-do mentality could end up in disaster, like Captain Ahab, as a symbol for the American can-do mentality. There's also, by the way, in the book, in Moby Dick's book, there is the suggestion of some sort of democratic decision-making. The subordinates of Captain Ahab dare to think that they could stop Ahab. So there is also a suggestion that maybe this powerful mentality of an entrepreneur, of a captain, of a leader, can be questioned by the subordinates. It's not just a one man says it all, one man does it all type mentality. And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from today and from today's entrepreneurship and disruption, and people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates in his prime, and so on and so forth. They needed to find Steve Jobs, of course. They needed to find ways to communicate with people and get also suggestions from below. They couldn't just go blindly on that ship and sail after that whale. They needed to get suggestions and ideas and they also needed no man. Just yes man is dangerous. So there's a lot of stuff packed into the Moby Dick story, and I'm just using these two books to show how important reading is. I keep saying that it's probably one of the most important tools for a hedge fund manager is reading, because and I'm saying this deliberately. If you read, you reading is the access to ideas. The ideas are in a different multiverse. They swirl around, and we have access to them through books. And we have a nail, which is how do we find the best possible investments to generate wealth according to our mission. In our case, our mission is to generate wealth by investing in technologically driven disruption with social impact. How this is the nail, and the hammer is ideas. So we're very deliberate that a lot of these ideas could be interpreted in one way or the other. For us, what matters is these ideas are important to calibrate ourselves, and so we know at any point in time where we stand, what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And this is what the main purpose of these ideas is. And in the case of Dr. Faustus and Moby Dick, in both cases, we are inspired to reflect about this drive to create new things, which is part of our mission as a fund, to find these types of situations and invest in them, help them grow, and also grow wealth with them. This is part of our mission, but we cannot forget, we must not forget that there is the possibility of this positiveness having a devilish pact attached to it. That doesn't mean we should not do it, but we should be humble enough to understand that positiveness on its own, without constraint, without a moral cathedral within where that positiveness can grow, or constraint is a better word. We need to constrain ourselves. We cannot just let power always, we cannot let energy go free. We need to constrain it so it can create the kind of useful outcomes that we're looking for. And I think Thomas Mann, in a more depressing way, because also he has witnessed positiveness and technological advancement in Germany, which led to the Nazis and the destruction of Germany, and not just the destruction in physical terms and lives, but also in spiritual terms. He talks about the people, the German people, the intellectual, truth-seeking scientific people that were blinded by these terrorists that took over the country, and also blinded themselves by pretending not to know what was going on. So he talks about these things. And on the other hand, we have Moby Dick, which is a warning to the American people and everybody else who is going to follow the American dream, that this positiveness that America has, or the capitalist system and the Silicon Valley system, which came about 100 years after Moby Dick was written, so in the 1950s, that this system is unbelievably positive, but it has to also be caveated with constraints, with questions. Hey, we need to make sure we stay on the right path. Thank you.